Yeah, so I was born in a home that was obviously not a Christian family, not a Christian home, living that kind of lifestyle, and born and raised in Yuma, Arizona. I was a third generation. My grandfather came and started farming out and turning desert land into productive crops, and that became pretty much his business and the family legacy.
Wow. Okay. And so that took you all the way through. So you were born and raised in Yuma, all the way through
Yeah, it's
high school, or?
through high school. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I graduated high school and couldn't wait to get out of town. I literally had my bags packed and in the vehicle on the night of graduation. The next day I was gone. So I got out of there as quick as I could, and went traveling with Rodeo. And so maybe share a little bit of the background story to get up to there.
Yeah.
So my dad was born in a barn on the ranch and raised cattle and horses and farmed and went into the Navy and
Wait
was
a minute. Your dad was born in a barn.
literally in a barn.
Okay.
Yeah. So when
All
I was
right.
a little guy, he would drive and he would take me by the barn where he was born, out by the farm, out by the property we're at.
Awesome. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So he went into the Navy, was a champion boxer in the Navy, was a cowboy, a rancher, all those things. And most of my siblings grew up out on the farm. But when when my mother was 6 months pregnant with me, my father was in a car accident and it paralyzed him from the waist down. So my life was very much different than the rest of the families. We had to move to town, to the city, and I was born prematurely because of all the stress and the pressure on my mother. For her husband, that was, now paralyzed and trying to figure out, what's next in life. What does that look like? There was a
Yeah.
lot of challenges and struggles for them. Had to sell a lot of things off in order to pay for the medical bills and buy a home in town. And their whole world changed. And in the meantime, my mother was pregnant with me. And so, anyway, I was born into that kind of environment and was raised in that home in the city. My mother had to work a full-time job, take care of a newborn, and take care of her husband who was recently paralyzed and a change of
Wow.
life. So that's kind of how my life started.
Yeah.
Grew up in a home, and then my father, he died when I was 12 years old. So he had all these
Okay.
medical complications all my childhood. Passed away when I was 12, and then my brothers came into the picture. But in the first 12 years of life, I was given a lot of attention and affection because a lot of folks felt sorry for me, right? Dad's in a wheelchair, don't get to grow up on the farm and all this kind of thing. So there was a lot of love, but with my mother having to take care of my dad and me in that way, they got me in sports really young.
Okay.
And so from the time I was 5, I was playing t-ball, and then it was Pop Warner, and it was soccer, and my whole life was in sports. That was kind of my babysitter. At the same time, I was one of those hyperactive kids, and so getting me out and running me around all day, every day, was my upbringing. In between soccer and football and baseball, I played tennis and raced BMX and did some wrestling and golf and tennis and the whole 9 yards. That was my life growing up was in sports.
I believe that because I know you and I see how you go like dawn to dusk and beyond.
Yeah, I
Like
guess
day
that
after
hasn't
day.
changed.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I'm amazed that you keep going. Energizer bunny kind of thing. So,
I can't help it. I get bored pretty easily,
uh
so
huh.
it keeps
Yeah,
me going.
yeah.
Yeah, so my father passed away when I was 12. And again, non-Christian home. I had 3 older brothers that were pretty close. I had 4 older sisters, not very close. But my older brothers kind of raised me. In fact, I remember after the funeral, I was 12. I was in the backyard crying, and one of my brothers, who had a pretty rough upbringing and was associated with drugs and running them across the border and different things. He came to me while I was crying in the backyard after the funeral, and he said, "You need to stop crying. You need to man up." He says, "Stop feeling sorry for yourself. Nobody else is gonna feel sorry for yourself. Your dad's gone. You need to learn to be tough."
Wow.
12 years old.
Okay. And
Uh,
how old was he at that time? Like,
he's 9 years older than me,
okay.
so 21, 22,
Right.
right about then. So then began my adolescent and teenage years. Right, going into junior high, my dad just died. My mom's distraught. She doesn't know what to do with her life because most of her life was about taking care of, my father. And then my brothers stepped in, and they felt like they had a role to play. And part of that, and me being a little guy, they wanted to make sure that I was tough. And so a lot of roughhousing, that kind of thing. And then, they, my one brother who's passed away now because of drugs and alcohol, he gave me a joint to smoke when I was 8 years old, and
Okay.
that made me sick at that time. I was probably about 10, and I saw him and some friends of his and their girlfriends in a house, and they had this big white thing on the table and had a razor blade, and were cutting it up, and I, they kicked me out, and then I snuck back in and took a peek, and I saw him using the straw, snorting this stuff. I didn't understand what was going on.
Yeah.
Um, and then, I got to spy on my brothers when they brought the girlfriends into the home and into the bedrooms and those kind of things. So that was kind of my upbringing. Uh, I remember my 16th birthday party. We had a party at my house. My mom was gone. My brother bought all the liquor, and I was passed out, drunk before everybody even showed up.
Oh
Woke
man.
up a couple hours later and continued to party all night long, and then passed out again at some other hour.
Yeah.
That was kind of my lifestyle growing up.
Hey, can I ask you a question too? I wanted to one. I just had this question about your father after his accident, which was before you were born, and then you had him around for 12 years. But what was his mental state? Because he'd gone from active guy working, probably hard worker out on the ranch or whatever, to paralyzed. I mean, was he
Yeah, I didn't really know at that time. As a baby, as a boy, I didn't know any of that. There was a lot of love and affection towards me,
even
but
from
my
him?
oh, absolutely,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
Even in a wheelchair, even from him. But I learned later on from my older brother that he really struggled. There were a couple times he just didn't want to live anymore. And one of the things that my brother told me that he told my father was that you can't in your life because that little guy there needs you around longer.
Okay.
So he struggled. He was a man's man. He was a woman's man. You know what I mean? A cowboy, a boxer, in the war, a farmer. And
Yeah.
so he struggled with life big time after that.
Okay.
So I was raised in this home with these older brothers, and by the time I got 16, the brothers were kind of gone doing their own thing, and mom had a really tough time with me. I was very rebellious. I remember, cussing at her, stealing her keys at night when I'm 15, and taking the car and stealing money out of her purse to go buy alcohol and things like that. And so, 15, 16 years old, and by the time I got to my sophomore year in high school, I was only looking for attention, and I was a very angry person, and kind of wild. And so, got in some trouble. There was a guy, a big guy that treated me wrong, and I started plotting and planning how to take this guy out. And so my mother recognized the anger in me, and sent me off my junior year to the Phoenix area to live with my sister, to kind of chill out, calm down, different environment. And in between the sophomore and the junior years, when I started riding bulls. So it was
Okay.
one of those things, like I wanted to do something that was thrilling, exciting, risk taking. I didn't know what it was, and so I got on my first bull in high school as a sophomore. When I moved to Phoenix, I had a lot of opportunity to get on bulls all the time. So I continued to wrestle and play football and do those things there. But becoming a cowboy was my new thing at that age. So I'd been, I had my buddies that I rapped and sagged my pants in high school, and then I was a skater dude, and then now I became a cowboy. So trying to find my identity, and I found it in rodeo with the crowds that were always roaring, and shouting. I wanted to be somebody in this world, right? I was a very prideful and arrogant young man and wanted all the attention. And bull riding was a way to get that. So wherever I went, people would introduce me not as my friend David, but my friend who's this bull rider, right?
Yeah.
And so, and then, the girls behind the chutes and the crowds and the whole thing. That junior year, I got away from the bad crowd, and my senior year went back home and got to graduate, still party, still do that stuff. But now I'm moving up in the rankings in the high school rodeo association, such that I was able to obtain a full ride scholarship to a junior college to compete in rodeo. My family had always wanted me to go to college. I never wanted to. I didn't like school very much at all. But one of my good buddies in high school, Phil Davis, he had a scholarship to the same college. And I realized that this was a next step to get into the big leagues in rodeo. And so I took the scholarship, went to school, and was able to make the college national finals my sophomore year, my second year. Didn't do well there, but I got there. And in the meantime, I won my pro card. So having competed at some entry-level professional rodeos, won my pro card there. So I was a professional bull rider in college, got to go to the national finals. And then I graduated with my associate's degree, and I couldn't wait to graduate and get on the road and make a career for myself in professional bull riding. Moved in with the girlfriend right out of college, and began to travel, and began to move up the ranks in the local circuits. And about a year into that, my college roommate, my buddy Vince, came over, and he told me how God had changed his life.